let's begin. So today, we're going to be focusing on the hamstrings. Take your therapy balls, bring them right into the crease of your knees. And then there's a couple of variations here. You can start to sit back onto your heels and you'll come to a more upright posture. If you have your chair, this is a nice use of that as a prop because it's pretty intense. Or if you're feeling like you want to be a little bit more supported, you can come towards a child's pose position. So find what variation works for you to begin. I'm going to stay upright with the support of the stool so that you can see me better and hear me better. So as you arrive, note how the initial reaction to the sensation is to tighten. And see if you can allow yourself to just start to soften into the sensation of where the balls and the body meet. By giving yourself the appropriate external support. Unweighting yourself to make it sustainable. And to ease in, sometimes a little gentle hip rocking is nice. So you shift your hips side to side. Just like rocking a baby, it's going to help decrease that tone and that fight or flight or sympathetic response and allow you to start to meet the sensation right where you are. And then after that sensation softens, pause in the stillness, taking about 5 deep breaths. With each exhale, letting your body be heavy. So this first technique we call sustained compression. So it uses gravity and time to create that myofascial release or myofascial unwinding process in the body. Thank you for joining. If you joined a little late, I just heard a little feedback. We're going to be working on the hamstrings today. We're starting with sustained compression. I am going to mute you just so there's no feedback so everyone can hear me well. But if at any time you have questions, please let me know. You can write them in the chat or unmute yourself. I did give you permission to do that as we continue. If you'd like some feedback, you can turn your video on and it's very much okay if you have it off as well. Just a couple more breaths here. One last exhale through the mouth. And then if you're in child's pose, walk yourself up. And if you're sitting upright, remove the balls and then just sit back onto your knees. Letting your hips rest on your heels. And notice the difference between now and when you first started. See if you feel like your hips are sinking into the heels with a lot more ease now. And then we'll find one more spot here along the hamstrings and the calves. So we're going to get right in the middle and then we'll sit back down. So it's going to be less sensational. This time you're going to stay upright versus go down to child's pose because you won't get the same compression. So now you're sitting upright and the weight of your body is just dropping in. And you might even feel it in the calves a little bit, right? In that muscular tendinous junction or that muscle belly, between the muscle bellies, maybe into the soleus of the calf. And again, to meet that sensation, you might find that you rock side to side a little bit. Maybe pausing and noting places of particular sensation, breathing into that. For those of you that haven't worked with me before, I find it really important to work into the tissues gently. So if you can meet yourself where you are and welcome that sensation, rather than try to barrel through or scrub out or push an effort, that softening, allowing, and welcoming the sensation with time, with breath, and with external support creates a much more sustained release and a much better reaction in the body. So I like to use time and I like to move slowly. And it's my goal to show you different techniques rather than just going in line, stripping in line with the musculature. Take about 5 more breaths here, finding stillness or continuing to rock across. Letting the body be heavy. Last breath, exhaling fully through the mouth. And then removing the balls from the backs of the thighs and sitting one more time onto your knees. Noticing the body sink even a little deeper now. And now while we're still upright, we'll transition to that chair or stool that I mentioned at the beginning so that we can do some pin and stretching to the hamstring. We'll find a couple places along the length of the hamstring, but first, I want to start right up high at the top of the hamstring. The hamstring begins at the ischium or the sit bone. So we're just going to come right off the sit bone, down a little bit into the top of the thigh, and we're going to place the ball right there. So make sure you're not on the sit bone with the ball, but just below the sit bone. And let's begin. I'm gonna place it under my left. So I'm gonna cue the left side if you want to be with me. And first, just arrive and again, feel your weight. And now we're gonna use the pelvis to drive some release. Bring your hands to your hips. And you're going to tip the pelvis forward, which will give a little pull and stretch on that hamstring tendon. And then tip the pelvis back, like you're slumping and sitting onto your sacrum or your tailbone. And then tip the pelvis forward. And then tip the pelvis back. And you'll feel it pull a little bit and stretch a little bit, maybe get a little bit deeper as you tip the pelvis forward. And on your own breath, go forward and back. This is a really important integration to get at the pelvis and low back, especially if you have low back problems. When the hamstrings are really tight, it's going to pull the back into this rounded position. And that's going to predispose us for things like bulging discs or disc herniation injuries. So being able to get the forward tip is really critical for that hamstring action.
Erica, we're only doing one ball right now, right?
Just one ball right now, right at the top part. Let's change the motion though. So we just did that pelvic tilting, and that's something I highly encourage you to practice. We'll do it again in a moment on the floor. But now, let's start to straighten your knee. Just go to where you start to feel a pull. and then bend. And then do that again. Pull. My knee's not all the way straight. It's more important to maintain an upright spine, and as you straighten the knee, try to avoid collapsing. So now can you separate that motion between the pelvis, keeping the pelvis stable? Oh, someone's having fun. If you don't mind, if you're joining, do you mind muting, please, so that there's no feedback? Although it sounds like wherever you are is kind of fun. So now this is pin and stretch, this bending and straightening the knee. And you'll notice that as you do it, you can go a little further each time, which is great. Now, you stay right where you are, but I'm going to turn so you can see. Now, the next movement here is going to be kind of like a cross friction or a transverse friction massage. So we're going to use the rotation of the hip to roll over the hamstring tendon, kind of like we're strumming a guitar string. We're going to go right across the top part of the hamstring. So the hamstring tendon just below the ischium. And maybe you'll find when I rotate one way, oh, I really get right into the edge of that tendon and it feels good. Maybe you pause and hold there, or maybe you're like, okay, now I'm rotated. What happens if I try to extend when I'm rotated? That might create a totally different sensation. So listen to the messages your body's sending you with the sensations that you're feeling, and allow yourself to be a student of your body. And explore and inquire into these sensations kindly and gently. And then let's find another spot along that hamstring. So when you're ready, no rush, we're gonna come down. I'm gonna come now down towards more of the middle of the muscle belly. And I'm gonna go through those techniques again. So pinning and stretching, and here, I extend even less. If you feel like you wanna create a little clamping, you can lean down on the thigh. This is definitely going to intensify the sensation. Just go to that first barrier of resistance, pinning and stretching. And now try rocking the knee again, internally and externally rotating from the hip so that you feel a movement across the hamstrings, like a strumming of a guitar string. We call this cross friction or transverse friction massage. And make sure that you're not just rolling over, swinging over the leg, swinging the leg, but that you're taking up the slack. So you're pushing in like you're kneading across versus just rolling over. So you're trying to move underneath the skin, actually move the tissues. Like you're picking them up and pulling them, kind of like stringing a bow a little bit. And then find one more spot along that hamstring, more towards the distal end or the knee end. On these long bones, I like to find 3 ball stops, and then go through whatever techniques seem to work for you. Whether it's pin and stretch, maybe it's just pausing and breathing with some sustained compression. No technique is better than any other. It's about what feels right in your body right now. And then you can also internally and externally rotate the hip, strumming. And here the hamstrings and the bottom of the hamstrings get a little bit more tendinous. Again, because now we're close to that insertion point that we first compressed when we were kneeling. And so I'm on a little, I really feel that strumming, that guitar string type action down here. So be curious and explore.
Is there a maximum time you should use a ball in a certain area to not overdo it?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking, Jen. So generally, I would say at least 90 seconds per area, because myofascial release tends to take about 90 seconds or so to begin, especially with sustained compression with time and gravity. So I probably would spend about 90 seconds in each point. I wouldn't, I don't think there's a maximum necessarily. I think probably a maximum, I would say, you know, would probably about be 10 minutes or so. I don't think you'll be comfortable much longer after that. And this is where learning to tune into your body is really important. Let's switch sides and I'll keep on that point. So I'm going to turn around so you can see. And then take the ball right underneath the sit bone so that you're at the hamstring tendon, the proximal hamstring tendon. Some people would call it the origin of the muscle. And this is what plays a huge role on pelvic position. So we're going to use the pelvis to mobilize. So tip forward and back. When the hamstring's tight, it pulls the pelvis into that backward tilt. So yeah, back to your question, Jen, I think that about 10 minutes or so would be the most that I would do. I wouldn't say sit there with your leg. Then you're going to start to get some nerve compression and some other things. But I would say at least 90 seconds in each area to really get a good release. What other tips on that? Yeah, that's where just becoming a student of your body and really being able to listen and feel when there's a tissue change. So feel, oh, does the area get warm? Oh, feel, does the area soften? Feel, oh, I just got new movement. And that's when you know that there's been a change. And by becoming more sensitive to those changes in the body, what you need to achieve. And then now, still with the ball up towards the origin, or that proximal hamstring tendon, start to bend and straighten the knee. Try to separate the motion between the knee and the pelvis so that you're not moving the spine. Another thing to think about too, and to be able to understand better, is the difference between good pain and bad pain. So are you feeling sharp pain? Are you getting sympathetic sympathetic reactions like increased heart rate, sweating, nausea? Those are not things that you want to necessarily feel. Are you feeling numbness? Are you feeling like loss of control? Those are things that you definitely don't want. If you're feeling anything like that, please remove the ball, come back to a comfortable position, and decide if you want to begin again in a different way. And then now, knee rotates in and out. Rotation comes from the hip. Again, keep the spine and the pelvis stable and try to isolate the movement of the hip in the joint. The ball inside the socket, like a pendulum. And when you feel ready, again, listening to the sensation of your body, find another ball stop. So to find the right spot, maybe move around a little bit until you feel a point of density, maybe a point of more sensation, something that is a little bit of a trigger point where as you push down, the sensations kind of radiate out, kind of like a sun. And then just pause there. First, observe the reaction in your body as you meet a new place. And then ask yourself, ask your body, how can I help you? What do you need now? And then maybe it's a little bend and straighten, or a rotation side to side. Let's now progress on your own time, using these same techniques. Finish in this spot, and then find one more spot, pinning and stretching, sustaining compression, or getting some cross friction massage by rotating from the hip. And as you get to that last point, that bottom point, one place to avoid is right in the back of the knee. So between the hamstring tendons, directly in the back of the knee, you do have your veins, your arteries, your nerves that go right in the middle. We call it the popliteal fossa. And so we do want to avoid those places. We also have a place like that in the front of the hip, in the armpit, in the front of the throat. So generally, we want to stay in the musculature. Finishing up in the next 5 breaths or so. Beautiful. Great, and release. And just sit normal. And we're gonna come back to the pelvic tilt. I first want you to feel it in sitting, so sitting on your sit bones towards the front edges of your sit bones. Try that pelvic tilting again, tipping the bowl of the pelvis forward, like you're pouring out the contents of your abdomen toward your knees, and then tipping the bowl of the pelvis back, like you're pouring the contents off the back rim towards the back of the chair. And just try to isolate the movement from your pelvis. Just moving from your pelvis, feeling that forward and backward motion. The hamstrings have a huge impact on this mobility. Great. Just a check-in point. Now take your balls back into the tote. And we're going to come right back to that motion. Balls in the tote, lying on your back. Bring the therapy balls right to the top of the sacrum. So those dimples right in the back of the pelvis. Just like this. Take your time getting there. And then as you arrive, come right back into, fall right back into that pelvic tilt forward and backward. Feeling the therapy balls massage both sides of the sacrum, so the sacral borders. Improving the proprioception or awareness of where the back of the pelvis lies. And now as you're ready, remove the therapy balls. Feel now how the sacrum drops into the floor. I want you to feel the pelvis resting flat and heavy on the earth. Getting aware of this stability is going to be really important as we come into a little bit of stretching for the hamstrings, which we'll do now with the strap. So take your belt, your strap, your bathrobe, tie, a dog leash, and bring it around the foot on the left side. Keep the right leg bent to start. And just notice, did I lose the contact of my sacrum and pelvis against the floor? Is there equal space in my back on both sides? And note how my knee's still a bit bent. And now take your strap, both ends of it together, and wrap it around the inside of your calf. Then come to the outside of the calf. And notice how I'm pulling on the outside of my calf and it's turning my leg in. And then I'm going to hold it with both hands right in front of my belly button. So now the action comes from the hip. We did a little hip rotation to warm up for this. So now turn the pinky toe side out. And I want you to feel the behind engage on the left. And I want you to feel the hip crease drop down. You may even take your thumb of your left hand, put the thumb right into your hip crease and press down here so that you can get a little bit more rotation outward. It's a very subtle movement, but as I engage here, I feel a little activation, a little quiver for 3, 2, 1, and then release. As I release, I feel my back kind of compress on the left. My hip lifts my hip towards my head. And then now I want to straighten out the back again so there's equal space in the low back on both sides. Push the hip down into the socket and then rotate my left pinky toes out to the side as I push my heel away. And I'm going to feel some activation in the left leg. You want to feel a little quiver, like that leg is working, but there's a tug of war going on. And then release, feel the leg rotate in again. The hip kind of draws up. The left side may shorten a little bit as you let go. But then I want you to activate one more time that muscular to maintain the spinal alignment and drive the hip down and toward the socket. So lengthen the low back on the left side, keeping the right side equally as long. So pelvis is stable. Now hip can come into the crease of the hip to push the hip down inside the joint. Flex your foot so your heel's reaching towards the sky. Rotate the left pinky toes out slightly. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release. And then now unwrap the strap, but keep this leg here. Maybe your right leg stays bent, or if you have the mobility, you can comfortably straighten the right leg down. But if that pulls the pelvis out of alignment, keep that leg bent. There's no position that's better than the other. It's what's right for you right now. And now, what I want you to do is I want you to push through the heel, like you're driving the heel to where the wall and the ceiling meet across from you. Activating the back of the leg, like you're trying to push the leg down to the floor, but the strap won't let it. Try to keep the shoulders relaxed. Keep pushing for 3, 2, 1, and then relax. And now notice how the leg just drifts up towards the sky. Let's do that 2 more times. Keeping your shoulders and arms relaxed. So see how my elbows are by my sides? Push through the heel, like you're pushing the heel to the ceiling, then push the leg away, like you're trying to push your leg down. Feel the hamstrings engage behind the knee. Be very careful if you're hypermobile. Do not let the knee hyperextend here. Keep a tiny bend in the knee to maintain the integrity of the joint. Because you can see, if I hyperextend, I come out of the musculature. I'm not getting that quiver anymore. But as I slightly bend the knee, I get much better knee and hamstring contraction. And then release. As you release, you almost feel like the leg becomes weightless and floats up a little bit. Again, come back to the sensation of your pelvis on the floor. Wherever you are, connecting to the awareness in the low back and pelvis, keeping equal length on both sides of the low back, and keeping both hips grounded into the earth. And then release both legs all the way down to the earth. And just notice the difference in sensation now as your legs rest on the earth. Let any remaining sensation subside before you come to the other side. And as you're ready, strap comes to the bottom of your right foot now, right in the middle of the strap. Both sides of the strap come together, wrap around the inside to the outside of your calf, and then now hold right in front of your belly button. As you pull with the hands, with the strap, with the hands, you feel the heel rotate out, the toes rotate in. Keep your left knee bent here for this activation to stabilize the pelvis. Now, you'll notice that the right side of the waist gets a little short. So create equal length in both sides of the low back. Feel the tailbone and the sacrum firmly press into the floor. Now, rotate the pinky toe sides out towards your right side and take your right thumb and press it into the front crease of the hip socket, dragging the ball down in the socket, and then rotating the right pinky toes out. And you'll start to feel a little quiver through the butt, through the gluteal area, the hip external rotators, and you should feel the ball of the hip joint moving down towards your left heel. Hold that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release. Let's do that 2 more times. Both sides of the low back long, sacrum, back of the pelvis flat, pressing down into the earth, maintaining stability. Drive the ball of the hip joint down in the socket towards your left heel, and then rotate the right toes out towards the right side. Keep breathing. And then release. If you need to pause and bend your knee, do so, because we'll do 1 more round. Do it on your own time, but I will cue it again. So both sides of the low back long, sacrum and pelvis flat and firmly planted. Without moving the pelvis, drag the right hip bone down in the socket. Maybe even use your right thumb to help push the sit bone on the right towards the heel on the left. And then rotate the pinky toes out towards the right. Engage in the external rotators of the hip. Press through the heel, flexing the foot. The right heel reaches towards the sky. For 3, 2, 1, and then release. Unwrap the strap. We have 1 more stretch here on this side. Now holding with both hands. Keep the shoulders relaxed and the elbows soft. So hold lower on the strap. Left knee can stay bent now, or it can come straight. But wherever you are, come back to the sensation of the pelvis. It's really important to keep the pelvis level, keep the low back neutral and long on both sides. And now, press the heel up towards the sky, lengthening through the back of the right leg, keeping a micro bend in the right knee, and then pushing the leg away, like you're trying to push it down to the floor, but there's a tug of war. I almost like to think of it as a lengthening. I'm reaching through my heel and pushing the leg away towards the wall across from me, where the wall and the ceiling meet. And I get really great activation of the hamstring. Again, especially if you have knee hyperextension or hypermobility, keep the right knee slightly bent. This is more active than stretching. And then release. And as you release, feel that leg let go and relax. It may even feel like it floats up or becomes a little weightless. And then on your own count, let's do that 2 more times, holding each activation for about 7 to 10 seconds. So first, flexing your foot, pushing through your heel towards the sky, and then pushing away from you. And as you push away, you'll feel the hamstring engage. 3, 2, 1, and release. Last time. Push. And release. Beautiful. Let both legs come all the way down to the floor for a moment. Maybe rock the feet side to side. Let go of any efforting. And then we have one more integration. So this last integration, we can do, I'm going to do it on my hands and knees. If hands and knees is hard, I'll give you a variation that you can do on your belly, although I feel like belly has a little bit more of effect on the back. So if you are on your belly, maybe a pillow under your belly would be good. And this is where I was saying, where you have, if you have the small therapy ball, it might be a little bit hard. And this is a great integration of everything we've done today: the core, the glutes, and the hamstring. So being on hands and knees, you have to stabilize the spine and stabilize the pelvis. And now with this activity, we're gonna get the glutes working and the hamstrings working. So there'll be 3 different parts. And also, if it's just the wrists that bother you, you could come here, or if you prefer, you could even be standing at a counter here, and we could do this activity. Okay? So lots of variations, but I'm gonna do hands and knees so that you can see me best. I've been starting with the left, so let's go to the left leg first. Press the left leg like a plank out behind you. Engage the belly, pulling the navel towards the spine, and then push the floor away so that you get a little puff up between the shoulder blades. Spine stays super stable here. First activity, just engage the left glute, lift the left leg off the floor. Up and down, straight leg. Let's do 6 more. Up and down. 5. And you can notice my leg isn't coming super high because I really want to maintain the integrity of my spine here. If I want to be really fancy, you can take a stick or a weight or something and place it on the low back for 3, 2, last one, hold it up. Now, lift, bend that knee as far as you can. Straighten it out and lower it down. Then lift bend, straighten, and lower. See how my pelvis is not moving at all. Straighten and lower. This can be done in standing. This could be done on the belly. It can be done leaning over a counter. Making sure that you're engaging, last time, the back of the leg and the glute only. Belly is staying tight so that there's no pelvic mobility. And then relax. I'll remove this just to get set into the next position. This is now, we'll bring the balls in. Again, now this time to make us work a little bit more. So I'm gonna place the ball right into the crease of the knee, just like I did when I kneeled on it. But now I'm using it to help keep the knee bent. I'm flexing the foot here, and then now my foot is coming up towards the sky, and then coming down. I even pull my knee into my chest a little bit to reconnect the abs, keep the abs engaged. Just the butt, lifting up, coming down. Keep the knee bent, squeezing the ball for 4 or 5 more. Last time. And release. Maybe sit back on your heels for a moment. Just a little child's pose or just seated to regroup. Almost done. We're just going to repeat that on the other side. Strengthening is such an important component, and re-educating the hamstrings is such an important component of getting out of hamstring pain or coming out of low back pain. We can stretch and mobilize as much as we want, but retraining is the essential key to maintaining the changes that we try to achieve. So here we go. 3 variations, about 7 or 8 of each. Hands and knees, or standing, leaning over a counter, or maybe even on your belly, but like I said, I don't like that as much because you don't have as much motion to go through. Right leg comes out to a plank behind you. Pull the belly in, press the floor away with your hands and your left knee. Now, only with your right glute, lift the right leg up and down. Up and down. Up. If you find that you're wobbly in your pelvis, maybe using something to monitor that. Maybe even one of the balls on your back. I haven't tried this. Probably the 2 balls in the tote would be a good. The 1 ball is a little tricky. And now let's add the knee flexion, the knee bend. Lift, bend, straighten, and lower. Lift, bend, heel to butt as much as you can. 5 more. For 4. For 3. Last time. Great. Now take your ball right into the crease of your knee. Bend the knee as much as you can. Keep the knee bent, compressing the ball. Now just from the hip, bring your foot up towards the sky. No back arching. And then pull the knee into your chest, engaging your belly, and then press it up. Keep the belly engaged and extend the hip. only moving the ball inside of the socket. For 3, 2, last one, and completely release. Excellent work. We are complete for today. Thanks for joining.